You're listening to ThunderQuack Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Spider-Man Homecoming Spoilercast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Konkin.
This is a weird Spoilercast.
It is, because it's just us sitting on your couch.
Because we're just sitting on the couch.
And waiting to podcast for a different thing, and we're spoilering in the meantime.
Yeah, Spider-Man Homecoming came out last week. Amanda and I actually went and saw it together.
We went together. We haven't gone to a movie together in a long time. I
think probably Man of Steel.
Oh, whoa, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that was so long ago?
But no, did you come to Justice League?
Justice League?
Not Justice League, Batman v Superman.
I did not, because I made my friends watch that one with me. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Not that you're not my friend, but you understand.
Yeah, thanks.
You understand.
Yeah, so then I think it would have been Man of Steel.
Yeah, wow, that was a long time ago.
That we saw anything else together.
So it was kind of...
You were supposed to come to Rogue One.
I was.
But you went to the wrong theater.
Because I was not told which theater to go to.
Yeah,
We've been over this.
Yeah.
It was both our faults.
My statement wasn't incorrect, though. You keep saying that like my statement's incorrect. You were at the wrong theater.
I was at the wrong theater.
Yeah. I didn't assign blame. You just assigned blame. But that's okay.
Yeah.
So you went to the wrong theater. Anyways, we managed to go to the same theater to watch Spider-Man Homecoming.
Just so that we're clear, I did wind up watching The Force Awakens or Rogue One at the theater I went to, so technically it was fine.
Yeah, okay. For you, yes. But we saw Spider-Man Homecoming, and we saw it in IMAX.
Now we'll podcast about it. Oh, no, it totally was Man of Steel, because didn't we, wind up going to see it and then immediately, sitting in a park somewhere and, actually, talking, doing a spoiler cast about it?
Yeah, we did.
That's crazy. Go back in the archives and find that somewhere.
That's on
like a Quiver podcast, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the second special that we did, I think.
Yeah, something
maybe even the first special we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're not going to talk about Man of Steel. We're going to talk about Spider-Man.
We're going to switch universes.
Friends.
Yeah. So spoilers. If you haven't watched Spider-Man,
you
need to go do that first, because it's obviously going to be a lot of spoilers.
Yeah, this is going to be a full spoiler cast, so we're going to talk about everything in the movie and spoil the crap out of it. But it's not going to be a very long spoiler cast. This isn't going to be extensive.
No.
But basically, we'll give you our review, and then we'll go into some spoilery type stuff. But what did you think, Amanda?
Well, I liked it. So here's the thing that always comes with Spider-Man, and I mentioned this to you when we were leaving the movie, is that Spider-Man is not one of, my heroes.
Yeah.
He's just a hero that's pretty cool. And so to be fair, I haven't hated any iteration of Spider-Man aside from the emo one, because it was really weird. But Spider-Man to be fair, I really liked Venom as a character. So it's it doesn't
So that is actually the perfect statement to get across just how out of the Spider-Man culture you are, because that is possibly the worst characterization of Venom. And I mean, there are some other pretty bad ones, but I won't even say it's possibly. The Topher Grace Spider-Man 3 version of Venom is the absolute worst version of Venom that's ever been on screen or in a comic.
Okay.
I'm sure that if he was on a superhero friend, was it called Superhero Friends? I can't remember, but there was a cartoon based on the little play school Marvel superhero figures that they made. There's a Rescue Heroes.
Yeah. One of those iterations type thing. Yeah.
And if Venom ever showed up on that, he was probably more true to the character than the Topher Grace version was.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, but to be fair, I liked the version of Venom when he was actually in Peter Parker.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that is.
Oh, the black costume on Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Again, worst version of the black costume. So,
okay.
Not what the black costume's supposed to look like. All right. Kind of, sort of.
So maybe I'm the worst person to be doing
really.
this. So the reason that I should sort of mention it. The reason I went is because I really like the MCU that they've created, and I think I've talked about this on other ones if I've been on one for I don't know, ThunderQuack, but I always talk about how I like television better than movies because I like long-form storytelling. And that's why I think of any movie franchise, the Marvel Cinematic Universe speaks to me the most, because it's long-form storytelling with really good, rich, dynamic characters. So I see everything in that universe. I did stop halfway through Jessica Jones, but only because I was, like, wanted him to be captured, and he was. So, anyways, I know that that's not how it ends, but I have stopped in a very good spot. So I have fallen a little behind in the TV series, but I'm getting what I need out of the movie universe that I don't need to.
They're not, like, the thing with the TV series and the movies is that although what happens in the movies affects what happens in the Netflix shows and on S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, it's not so much.
It doesn't really flow back the other way.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm fine with that.
Inhumans might change that, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do. I don't. I trust networks to, like, keep their own stuff pretty close to, like, they're not going to get all the permissions they need. But so, anyways, I watched Spider-Man as somebody going to see the next version of the Marvel movie, not because I wanted to see a Spider-Man movie. Yeah. That being said, maybe because of that, I quite enjoyed this version of Spider-Man. I do like Andrew Garfield. I know a lot of people didn't like him. Yeah. Obviously, I like him way better than I liked
Tobey Maguire.
Yeah. I also liked, like, I don't know. I just like, I don't know. I kind of liked the story in this, and I liked the characters that he was surrounded, like, with. I thought Ned was really cool. Hilarious billing in this. I think I was pointing it out to you as I was reading the credits, in the fact that, like, Ned is, like, billed like 8th or 9th or 10th, something like that. But he's very clearly the second lead. Yeah. And it just has to do with, well, because these movies are not about this movie, they're about the franchise, that you get all these people that are billed above them. My best surprise that I wasn't expecting was Donald Glover. Yeah. That was sweet. I didn't even know he was in it. And it was only like a couple days before that I realized that Zendaya is in it. I didn't know she was in it. And it was really interesting to find out she was in it beforehand. I didn't really know who she was. Yeah. And then I sort of found out for other things. There was some other stuff that I was reading about her, who she seems like a really cool person. When she got offered her, like, Disney show, I guess, she, like, made sure that it wasn't, like, a character that was based around, like, singing or dancing and all that stuff. She wanted it to be like... Anyways, so I was reading this cool stuff about her. So it was really interesting to then watch the movie and be like, why are they featuring this woman that they're not actually, like, paying attention to? Yeah. And so you're like, oh, it's for the payoff of the very last beat of the movie, when you're like... Oh, your nickname's MJ? Really? Yeah. And even me, as somebody that's not, like, as a casual fan, I know who MJ is, right? Yeah. Like, that's a very clear, obvious setup for stuff, and it was really interesting.
We told you it was a spoiler cast, by the way, so if you're yelling at us right now...
No, there's no way. You should. Yeah. And the other thing... I mean, I'm just giving my review, and then you can give your review, I guess, whatever. But the other thing about it that I really liked was that you had no idea that Vulture was the girl's dad. Yeah. Like, that was so well crafted.
A perfectly buried twist.
Yeah. And
it was like... Yeah. When you then, like, the second you find out,
you're like...
You think back on the movie and you go, like, well, that should have been kind of obvious.
Yeah, the way that he, like, talks about his family and that it's, like, a big deal and you never see them.
And when you see her house at the party the first time, it's like, oh, she's, like, super rich.
Yeah, yeah. And
right?
so it's like,
And, like, but you don't put it together because Michael Keaton comes off as, like, such a kind of, like, everyman. Yeah. Even though he is the supervillain, you're kind of like, especially because of the way that they establish his character at the very beginning of the movie, you kind of just feel like, oh, he's just a guy.
Yes.
So he probably just, like, he's making all this money being a crime lord kind of
But he might not be, like...
But he's just living in a house, right? And then it's like, no, he's living in, like, the house. Yeah. Like...
Well, and, I mean, a huge part of it...
windows.
And a huge part of it for me, and it's one of these really interesting things where you're like, you don't expect the, like, lead black woman in a movie to have a white dad. Yeah. Like, it's just a thing that you don't, us as our, like, modern culture... Yeah. And the way that we
they totally play on that,
right? And in such a great way that you're like, oh, we're all dumb, like, of course,
we're all dumb and bad also.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's really interesting in a way that, like, I don't think that the movie is getting enough credit for that, but I think because it's a spoiler, they can't really talk about it that much.
For sure.
But
and I do think, like, the diversity of the cast is definitely something that has been mentioned offhandedly, but I think that that's by design on Marvel's part. I think that what they're trying to do is introduce a diverse cast without making it about that, because it's 2017 now. So you should just have a diverse cast. Yeah. And then you shouldn't also be using that as one of your marketing tactics. Because, because it comes off as contrived, where it's like, and look at our wildly diverse cast, and it's like, okay, are you the Power Rangers? Are you Captain Planet? Like, I don't care that you have one of everything, right? Like, because that oftentimes that's kind of how it ends up feeling when it's part of the marketing. So I think that they're just going like, and look at this, like it looks like the real world. That's how they talk about it when they talk about how diverse it is. And that's the thing, is that like these teenagers act like teenagers, right? They live in a world that is believable and it's grounded, but then they're also in the MCU. So as weird as it is to say that the MCU and how crazy it's gotten between the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy and Doctor Strange, I mean, like, we've got all of our bases covered. So at this point, a kid swinging on spider webs and a dude robbing banks, or not robbing banks, but robbing armored vehicles in a bird suit, like in this high tech like wingsuit thing. It's like, well, that's not ridiculous. It's like, oh, they built a less highly advanced version of Falcon's suit. Right. Like that, you look at Vulture's suit, and it's like, oh, that's not even as advanced as Falcon's wingsuit, right? Falcon's wingsuit's like way better. The wings are so much smaller, but the Vulture suit does a bunch of other stuff too. So.
It's cool. There's some cool things bringing up. I didn't think about this until this very moment we were talking about it. In the car on the way over, somebody was talking about Donald Glover showing up in Spider-Man as like a precursor to like perhaps he could take on the mantle, and I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, wasn't that a thing that Spider-Man in some iterations?
So here's the thing. The character that Donald Glover plays is actually a supervillain / superhero in the Marvel Universe.
Oh.
So he's actually a character called Prowler. And Prowler was kind of a bad guy. Like, he was kind of like a small-time thief, as he's portrayed in the movie. And at a certain point, he kind of crosses paths with Spider-Man. And then there's a period where Peter Parker is no longer Spider-Man, and the Prowler actually like takes on the identity of Spider-Man for a while.
That's
and most recently in The Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker basically takes Tony Stark's place in the MCU, because we're talking about Peter Parker who's in like his late 30s, right? So he, after it's a long walk, just bear with me for a second. After Dr. Octopus switched bodies with Peter Parker for a while Doc Ock was in Peter Parker's body, he launched a hostile takeover of Horizon Labs where Peter Parker was working, and turned it into Parker Industries. And he also set up all of these, like, you know, like the supervillains, they all seem to like have this money for henchmen and giant robots and whatever.
Set up a fund.
So basically Dr. Octopus used the same techniques, but a little bit more legitimately, using Horizon Labs resources to create all of these shell corporations, blah blah blah, in order to turn, so that when he took over as Parker Industries, to turn Parker Industries into the next Stark Industries.
Oh wow!
And so he does, and then Peter Parker gets back
and doesn't know how to deal with it.
And basically, so he's in charge of Parker Industries, but has no idea how to run a multinational corporation, but still tries, right? So he does this. They basically just make him Iron Man, where it's like he tells everybody that Spider-Man is his bodyguard to explain why Spider-Man is always
around
in whatever city Peter Parker's in, because he goes to all of his different global headquarters.
Oh, right,
But one of the other things that he does is he's got Prowler. I can't remember the character's real name at the moment, but he's got this guy, the guy Prowler, the character that Donald Glover plays. He has him basically like at his beck and call to also be Spider-Man sometimes,
so that he can be
that Spider-Man and Peter Parker can be in the same place,
right? And
so like he's most recently in the comics, he was actually Spider-Man in a few of the issues.
Oh, cool.
So it's a really cool thing. The other thing is that he is also the uncle of Miles Morales. And Miles Morales is the young Spider-Man in the current continuity. But previously in Ultimate Spider-Man, Peter Parker dies and Miles Morales becomes Spider-Man. Cool. So Miles Morales was a response to the campaign for Donald Glover to play Peter Parker in the Amazing Spider-Man movie series that Andrew Garfield ended up being Spider-Man in.
Oh.
So people campaigned for Donald Glover to play Spider-Man.
No way, I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah,
no.
it was a huge.
To be fair, I did not pay much attention to
Twitter campaign, like Donald Glover for Spider-Man. Like,
wait, it's ringing some sort of bell right now, but
this is like back
cool.
in the day,
wow, this
like
is like
Community
a lot of stuff.
season
right.
1, 2.
Wow, holy, okay,
yeah,
cool. So the fact that he made it into a Spider-Man movie is pretty cool.
This was like their roundabout way of getting Donald Glover on screen as a character who could potentially become Spider-Man one day, or I mean, like, I would really love it if, like, by Spider-Man Homecoming 3, like, whatever the third one is, in the MCU, they go, yeah, he can be Prowler now. Let him be Prowler in a movie, and like Donald Glover gets to be Prowler, and then team up with Spider-Man, and they have a whole thing, and then you end out that trilogy of Spider-Man movies by introducing Miles Morales, and Miles Morales is going to be Spider-Man in another movie later on.
Yeah, that's cool.
And like the comics right now, you can have more than one Spider-Man. It's not a big deal. Like people know if they're different costumes, whatever.
Cool.
Yeah, so they really like they've.
Set up a lot
they
of stuff.
set up a bunch of stuff, and they also kind of paid off a lot of things and fulfilled a lot of fans' sort of
nice. Yeah, that's
dream
cool.
of Donald Glover being on screen as a Marvel superhero, right? And like they've set something up that I think could have a really, really cool payoff. So.
Yeah, he got pretty good billing in that
series.
It's good.
So
it's good.
So anything else on your review of Spider-Man?
I think that those were all the big review things.
Yeah.
Oh, so my buddy Andrew, who was on the Wonder Woman Spoilercast, by the way, mentioned to me he looks at movies and views stuff differently in like his perspective of stuff. So he pointed out something that I would never have like named, but that in hindsight I actually did react to in a way that I wasn't sure what it was. Yeah. And what he called it. And it was like a little bit, I don't know if this is actually what it's called, but it's like the thing that wasn't in the movie that he really liked was the their gay scene. Like the idea of like when Peter Parker is like Ned is in his room, and he freaks out and he takes off the costume, and then his aunt walks in and he's in his underwear and his aunt walks in. There's never any beat of her being like, what's going on in here, boys?
For sure.
And that being like a really positive thing that it's she just says
like, maybe you should put some clothes on.
Yeah, like it's not like, it's
yeah.
not like any sort of, and I understand like that as a thing that like this movie was actually quite progressive in like small little ways where it's like that was a wholly unnecessary beat and they didn't do it.
And I think that plays into what I was saying about the diversity thing with them not calling attention to it because you don't need to call attention to it. You just need to do it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, and that's a very good thing that I didn't notice either. I mean, like, I definitely in that scene, like, I felt something of like, he's in his underwear. You're not going to comment, and then like, there's the joke at the end, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right?
But it wasn't in any way like a make them uncomfortable because of their sexuality type situation. And it was a thing where I did when he was like not dressed and his aunt was coming. I was like, oh, something's going to happen, and it's like, no, they're just hanging out. Like it's. Like and so it's like it is. These are
best friends. Who have probably had God knows how many sleepovers.
Yeah, and it's just like
so
not
it's
a
like
weird thing,
he's
right? It's just
changing
like
clothes and it's they have gym class together.
Exactly. So it's just it was really cool, and it's cool that it's movies like this that are desensitizing us in a really positive way. Yeah. Because I hadn't realized how programmed I was for certain tropes in movies until you get to a movie like this where you actually like don't even notice that they take those tropes out. Yeah. And or you do subconsciously and you start to break those like reactions. Yeah. And I think that that's really positive, and the more that we can do that in media, the better we'll be. So that was like a really cool thing that he pointed out. And so I'm sure there was lots of other stuff that again I wouldn't ever like I don't necessarily notice, but it's really good that it's there because it does obviously hit for many different people, which is great. So that was a big thing. The one question I have for you, and then it can maybe go into your review. Yeah. I don't know what the final Spider-Man suit was. Like, what is that supposed to be? Is that his Avenger suit? Like the one they showed him?
Yeah, so that is a reference to the fact that Tony makes him his first suit, right? I mean, he's got the homemade suit, and then Tony makes him the suit from Civil War, which is obviously like the classic Spider-Man suit with a few upgrades.
Which we should talk about afterwards.
Yeah.
Carry on.
But the new suit is a reference to the Civil War comics and a suit called the Iron Spider, which is from, in Civil War, everybody has to pick sides, Cap or Iron Man. And Spider-Man sides with Iron Man, and Iron Man gives him a teched out suit. Cool. Before this, Spider-Man's always made his own suit.
Right, yeah, okay.
So he gives him this teched out suit. Now in the comics, it's red with a gold spider on it, and then like a red mask with gold eyes, and it's got like these spider legs that come out of the backpack, and it does all these things, and it's the first time that we see that sort of thing. Civil War used a little bit of that in like, here's a suit that I made for you that's better than your suit. Right, yeah. And then in Homecoming, we discover that the suit actually has all these augments in it that we didn't know about in Civil War because we didn't spend enough time with him.
Yeah, yeah.
But so they kind of got a little bit of the Iron Spider stuff in Homecoming already. But that suit, you could tell, even from just like the brief glimpse that we get of it, we get the one really nice close-up shot, and you can kind of see that the shoulders are actually armored, and like that suit is actually like mechanical. It's not just
like a
it's not just a fancy suit. It's like an actual like Iron Man esque. Like it's pared down a little bit, but it's in the same way that like that Tony enhanced the Falcon's costume, and like he's enhanced everybody's gear, right? Yeah. So like that's what that's meant to be. So like the spider being sort of like crawling up over it and onto the shoulders, that's all very Iron Spider. But it also references the Ben Reilly costume, which Ben Reilly we thought was the clone, but it turned out that he was actually. And it's very confusing. Okay. Peter Parker was cloned in the 90s, and we thought that Ben Reilly was the clone, but then it turned out that Ben Reilly was the real Peter Parker. But then it turned out that actually Peter Parker was the real Peter Parker and Ben Reilly was a clone, and the whole thing. But for a little while, Ben Reilly became Spider-Man. And when he did, he had a suit that was very similar to that as well, without the gold. Okay, it was just like the red and black and blue. So there's a lot of references in that suit, and it's very much just like a throwaway, like check it out. But my guess is that it'll make a comeback in Infinity War. That there will be a moment, like at the beginning of the movie, he'll probably be in his regular costume, but at a certain point, he will switch over to the Iron Spider costume because everything that we've seen behind the scenes of Tom Holland, he's not in a Spider-Man costume. He's in a mocap suit, very similar to what Robert Downey Jr. is usually wearing.
So it makes sense that it would be something more complicated than just
that there will be more moving parts to the suit than what we're used to seeing.
Awesome.
That said, like the whole suit in Civil War was CG. In every shot that he's in, that suit is entirely computer animated.
Wow.
Yeah, and you can't even tell. It's so well done. Because they hadn't finalized the design on the suit yet. And so when you look at behind the scenes pictures, you'll see that the spider on his chest is different, that some of the piping's not there. It's actually a completely different costume from what it ends up looking like in the movie later.
Cool.
But because he's wearing a costume on set, they're able to like perfectly match the CG.
Right?
Because they have that perfect photo reference of what the reds and blues should look like. So, but then in Homecoming, he's wearing the suit for a lot of it. He's actually wearing the outfit.
Cool.
Yeah.
Favorite moment though, I did like the payoff of the Gwen. What's her name? Her actual name?
Pepper?
Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah. Gwen.
Gwen
but anyways, yeah. Gwyneth Paltrow was in the movie.
Yeah.
That was cool as well. Like, it was just like a cute little beat that, again, has to do with the Marvel Universe. It had nothing to do with Spider-Man.
Yeah, nothing to do
but it was a payoff for, like, 4 or 5 or 6 movies where you're just, like, waiting for her to be back.
Iron Man 3 would have been... Let me look at my collection and count backwards. We've got 1, 2, 3...
like a lot, like
which
4 or
one's
5 or
Iron Man
6
3?
movies.
Yeah, like a while ago. So Iron Man 3 is like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, like it's a big deal.
Point.
Yeah,
so that's the last time she was in an MCU movie.
Yeah,
and her absence was conspicuous. And in Age of Ultron, she gets a shout out.
Yeah,
as does Jane Foster.
Yeah.
But there were all the rumors that like, oh, Gwyneth Paltrow is difficult to work with, and they don't want her back, and she doesn't want to come back unless they pay her a bunch of money and all that stuff.
I believe the second part because she probably got paid a lot of money.
Oh, I'm sure she got paid a lot of
money
money for that half a day's work.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that there's like the
same speculation as
I don't think that there's like
it's just
the
probably
falling
hard
out.
to
It was
include
just like
her in a cast that big, and like when she's a big name
when
herself.
you're doing
right?
Avengers
like,
2, it's like you can't have Natalie Portman and Gwyneth Paltrow also in that party scene.
Yeah.
Because the other part of that is then when Ultron attacks,
what happens to them?
They?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You had to explain why they both left the party inconspicuously, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it made sense for them to just not be there, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't make any sense for her to come back in this.
Yeah.
And yet she does.
Because it's like
such
great.
a great moment.
And it's like, of course she's just running the PR for what Tony needs. Like it just makes a lot of sense. So I really liked that beat because it was a storytelling beat for like the larger universe to like make you remember that she's still there. There's that cute thing with the ring, which is like whatever it is, but it is kind of just like a funny like
I've been carrying this around since 2008.
And then she's like, no, we'll come up with something like, and he's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and then the best
funny.
part of that, and possibly, I mean, because that is my favorite scene. That whole sequence from the time that like Peter gets there until the end of that scene is my favorite moment in the whole movie. And the moment where Tony's going through the door, he's like, yeah, no, totally, no, we'll think of something, something. And then he turns back and he puts his hands up, and Happy just tosses him the ring, and he catches it, and you're like, it's just so like, it's just like this snippet of an Iron Man movie inside a Spider-Man movie that I was like, perfect. I love it. It was so good. I loved the movie from start to finish.
Okay.
There wasn't, I don't think, like really anything out of place. There's some timeline stuff that it does when it says that the Battle of New York was 8 years earlier.
Yeah, that's
it actually, and we had talked about it a little bit. That, like, oh well, things didn't necessarily happen when they happened, or when the movies were released. But actually, when I looked at, and I posted an article on the Facebook group, on the ThunderQuack Facebook group for our Patreon supporters, with the timeline, and I think it's from Avengers forward. Everything happens as it
comes out. Oh, interesting. Cool.
More or less, right?
Yeah.
But everything pre-Avengers actually happens in a very short amount of time, with some movies happening concurrently, like Thor and the Incredible Hulk happen at the same time, shortly after Iron Man. So it's like Iron Man happens, and then that happens, and then very soon after that is when they uncover Steve Rogers from the ice.
Cool.
And then Avengers happens, right?
I actually remember trying to open that link, and it wouldn't show me everything in big, and so I couldn't like see it on my screen. So I want to watch it. So
there, but even still, there are some timeline issues because that supposedly happened in 2012, right? So that doesn't make any sense with it now being 2017. Although Spider-Man: Homecoming doesn't take place in 2017. I was gonna say, it doesn't say. It actually takes place it should take place in the fall of 2016 because it's the summer of 2016 when Peter goes to Germany with Tony to take place in Civil War. Because that's when that movie happens. Oh, okay. Right? So, like, we know from that movie, because there's all the news clips and stuff, that's when that happens. Okay, cool. And then Homecoming would have been this past September. Right? It would have been the beginning of the year. September, October, right? So, that it actually, like the timeline doesn't quite make sense unless something in the future is going to... Unless they are actually retconning that in order to set something else up in one of the movies that's coming up soon. So we've got Thor Ragnarok coming in November, and then Black Panther coming in February, which I thought Black Panther was next November, but I had forgotten that they bumped it up, and it's actually coming out in February of 2018. It is so close. And they just released the teaser trailer ahead of Comic-Con's in 2 weeks, or a week and a half. as of us recording this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like, that's, like, they're gonna... I think they're gonna show us...
so many good trailers are gonna come out in the next 2 weeks then. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, is there a new Stranger Things coming out or premiering at
Stranger Things,
Comic-Con?
well, they just did, like, a little tease thing, a poster, but they'll probably release a full trailer.
Yeah.
And that got announced for October 27th, but...
Yeah. Oh, so exciting. October 27th, good time.
Yeah.
How about Halloween?
Yeah. It's going to be perfect for Halloween.
That is the one thing that I do regret not having watched Stranger Things immediately. I waited like a good 6 months to watch Stranger Things. And then I was sitting there in my own little bubble being like, what? Nobody can appreciate this with me because everybody already has.
But yeah, I loved it. And I think that the best thing about Spider-Man Homecoming is the Vulture. I think like it's the first Marvel movie with a fully fleshed out and great villain.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I think the only other character that's come close is Loki, but that's only because Loki's gotten 3 movies to do it in.
Yeah.
So it's like, and he'll be in Thor Ragnarok as well. So it's like Loki has this huge arc over several films, and we'll see where it goes in Thor Ragnarok. But in one movie, they managed to set up this character for Adrian Toomes that's totally different from the comics, and yet set him up in a way that, like, you know, the Mandarin was totally different from the comics as well, but everybody hated that. Now, I love the Mandarin.
No, the Mandarin was great.
I love the Mandarin, and it's like, because the Mandarin, as he appears in the comics, is super problematic and needed to be changed. So they created this awesome character. And,
Ben Kingsley is just
and tied it into
so
Aldrich Killian and brought those two characters together in this awesome way and reimagined it. That I love, because Iron Man 3 is one of my favorite Marvel MCU
the way
movies.
you're talking about it, and now I'm like, oh man, I really want to rewatch that movie. Like,
Iron Man 3 is really good.
It's really good,
A lot of people don't like it. I disagree. I think Iron Man 3 is one of the best. But yeah, with Toomes, like, they set him up so perfectly at the beginning of the movie that you are actually rooting for him.
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Until he comes up against Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right? And it's at that point that you go, all these other guys that are working for him, it's like this guy that's shooting at Spider-Man with the shocker gauntlets or whatever. Yeah. He's a bad guy. Yeah. But Toomes isn't really a bad guy. He's just a regular guy in a bad situation that's made some poor choices. Yeah. And then you get to the point where he's revealed, and then, like, second favorite moments in the movie is when he puts it together. Right?
Yeah.
And in the car ride.
That's
and
brilliant.
Like, they're talking about it, and it's like, you were on the trip. Yeah. Did you see Spider-Man? And it's like, no, I actually wasn't there.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And it's good when you have people that are good. Like, it's like good, because that could happen in a lesser movie where like he wouldn't. The thing that's interesting in what you say about bad guy not being a bad guy, because he was in any other standards like a straight up bad guy, but there's little things where, like, the most like badass moment of it when he like just takes that gun and shoots that guy,
he disintegrates him.
And you're like, oh, what a villain. And then he's like, I thought this was the gravity gun. And you're like, oh, okay, you didn't mean to just like obliterate that guy.
Unlike Aldrich Killian, he's not just killing his henchmen.
Exactly. So which is like a really interesting twist on that particular trope as well, because you're like, oh.
But the thing that makes it so good is that for Spider-Man's everyman hero, they created an everyman villain. Where it's like, cool. This is a villain that we can all kind of see ourselves falling into that trap. By
accident,
Right? It's like, well, if you had access to the things that he had access to, you might make the same choices, right? Yeah. So, I just thought that was such a perfect way to introduce us to the world of this Spider-Man, and to set him up on this small scale that's big enough that it requires Spider-Man, but small enough that it doesn't require the Avengers. Yeah. And that you can kind of justify, like, I don't know what Tony's doing throughout Homecoming, that he's not there helping Peter more than he does, although he is there. He's there quite a bit. Yeah. But obviously, what he is doing is more important, and maybe we'll find out in Infinity War.
And to be fair, I don't actually care. Like,
exactly.
It's fine to me. He was there when he wanted to, and there's little things.
We don't need to know what he's doing.
Exactly.
Just know that, like, he's Iron Man.
Yeah,
right? And like Captain America is currently in hiding, so Cap's not really doing anything. I'm sure he is. But you have to think about it that, like, Iron Man is now, like, the number one superhero on the planet. He's basically the MCU's Superman at the moment.
Right, yeah.
Right? So, like, he is off running the Avengers.
Yeah.
He doesn't have time to hold Spider-Man's hand.
I need to rewatch Civil War. I did not know that. Oh, yeah, they do sort of go off in the end, because he actually takes Bucky, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
He takes him to Wakanda.
Oh, right. And interesting. I forgot about Captain America until you just mentioned it. I have to say, that was one of my favorite after credits, I think.
Yes.
Out of anything. It was so good. Like, you've been waiting for one of those, right? Where it's like, because everything's like story-based or like teaser trailers or all this stuff, and then you're kind of just like, they've been waiting for this. Like, it's been it's been long enough in the series that they can get away with this.
It's so good because we just had Guardians.
Yeah.
And Guardians was, I think that there's like 6 after credit scenes.
Something like that,
And each one of them sets up a different thing. Yeah. And they're all like, look at all these things that all these places that we can go and all these things that we can do. And look, we're setting up the original Guardians. But they're Ravagers. But but those characters are actually some of the original Guardians from like the 60s or 70s when the characters were introduced. Because the ones that we know are actually the
later ones,
the reboot from the comics,
which
right?
is cool.
They might even be like the 3rd reboot from the comics, but. So like you get that one that's like it's setup after setup after setup after setup, and you're like piecing it all together, going like, what does all this mean? Yeah. And then here comes Spider-Man: Homecoming, where it's like, we already knew. Like Matt Gargan was in the middle of the movie,
right?
And they referred to the Scorpion armor at some point. Like they say Scorpion Project or something like that.
Yeah,
they say the word Scorpion in the movie.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh well, we know that. And, like, we see his tattoo in the middle of the movie. Like, we know that they're setting up the Scorpion. What they give us in that mid-credit sequence is they're setting up the Sinister Six.
Oh.
So, hopefully, that's the next movie. Is that the next movie, the Sinister Six are the bad guys. Cool. So, all at once, we get the Scorpion in his armor. We get the Vulture back in his armor. We get Dr. Octopus, maybe.
Oh.
We get, maybe we get Kraven. Maybe we get another Shocker or the Shock. Because the Shocker escapes, doesn't he? No, he doesn't.
No, he was
Ned
the one
webs
that got...
him up. Yeah. Such a good moment. Oh, my God. That's the thing about this movie is that it's not... It might not be as coherent a story as some of the other MCU movies in terms of, like, a 3-act, this happens, then this happens, then this happens. It is a little bit more of it's scenes. Like it's just a whole bunch of scenes in a sequence. Yeah. And a whole bunch of these great moments.
No, it did have a very clear act. They did have acts because you get the whole him saving his class in the middle, right? Like that's the like
there is a 3-ish act structure, but it almost starts to break into the 5-act.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's true.
So. It is a little bit. It's not hard to follow, it is a little bit less of like the clear, like Iron Man 1 is like a perfect 3-act structure, and Captain America: The First Avenger 3-act structure, Thor 3-act structure, right? Like those movies are like very. The Avengers, very programmatic, right? This happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then they fight the bad guy at the end, and that's the end. But with Homecoming, it's like you
can actually take out little chunks of this and watch them as short films, like that bit where he's like stuck in
it's
the
almost
vault
episodic.
and like which is kind of cool and it works.
Yeah,
you just reminded me of one of my favorite like beats is when the teacher catches Ned in the computer lab.
Yes,
and he's like. Watching Thor.
It's such a long, uncomfortable pause. Yeah. Like to the point of this feels paced really weird. Yeah. But it gets you into the headspace where it's like when he says porn, you're like, I want to feel relieved that he finally said something, but he said the wrong thing. He just said the wrong...
It was so perfect.
Yeah. No, it's exactly what a teenager would be like, And you feel him searching, and in your head you're going like, you're working on a school project. It's this, it's that. I'm playing World of Warcraft. Like, there are a million excuses that he could have come up with, and he says the worst one.
But it's like the perfect one because it's like that's what she like expected. And so, but anyways, there were a lot of really fun beats in this movie.
And that's the thing, is that it really embraces the fun of the MCU, and it's got the epic moments as well, like with the DC sequence and the surfing on the back of the van, right? Like he's sort of like
going through the stuff.
It has DC great moments.
Oh, when they're in DC.
Yeah,
I was
like
in
DC. Like it has its great epic moments, but it has way more fun moments.
Yeah,
and it really. And, like, there is the direct reference to Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But more than just Ferris Bueller's Day Off. There's also, like, some Breakfast Club. There's some, like, Pretty in Pink.
Some classic, like, high school movie tropes.
There's, like, the weird science sort of element between Ned and Peter that's so great. It feels like a John Hughes movie.
Yeah, I didn't actually think about that until now.
It totally feels like a John Hughes movie.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
It's just that it's a John Hughes movie where the main character happens to also be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's just I think that it's actually one of the best MCU movies so far, and it's not even a Marvel Studios movie. It's a Sony movie.
Crazy.
But
isn't it both?
It's both for sure. But Sony did make this movie.
But you did notice though. Something about the credits that made me laugh audibly was like the way the credits were placed, where like Sony got to place its head credit in like the prominent place, but the way that Marvel placed theirs actually meant more, but it was like a lesser, like it was just this really interesting way that they had got around the idea of head credits.
I loved it because it was like, because the movie starts and because this is the thing about MCU movies, they have gotten themselves to a level like Star Wars, where like Star Wars starts with the Fox fanfare and the 20th Century Fox logo into the Lucasfilm logo into blue text a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Yeah. Silence, bam, Star Wars theme with the Star Wars logo, right? Like it's like a musical, physical, visceral thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And the MCU movies have gotten to that point too, where it's like the Marvel logo is so important, and then like they've given it these great fanfares and stuff at the beginning of the movies, and it's such an important part of sitting down and knowing that this is an MCU movie. And yet like they subverted that by going Sony logo, Columbia logo, the movie starts and you go, oh, there's no Marvel logo at the beginning? Is this going to be okay? Yeah. And then you get right into the setup for Vulture, and that ends, and it's like, bam, Marvel logo. And the Marvel logo comes up, and you could feel it in the theater. Yeah, that people went like, oh man, this is going to be so good. Because they had already, because that scene by itself was already so awesome. Yeah. Setting up the Vulture and basically the events that sort of set everything into motion 8 years earlier.
Also, that woman and that group, whoever it was, the Homeland Security but knockoff thing.
Damage Control.
Do they exist? Do you think going forward?
Damage Control is okay. So there's two things here. Damage Control is from the comics, and Damage Control was referenced in Civil War, but it was an Easter egg in Civil War. It wasn't important.
Right.
Because everything that was going on with the Accords was the DODC. If you pay attention, you go back and watch Civil War, documents say DODC on it, which is the Department of Damage Control. And I think Martin Freeman's character is part of the Department of Damage Control. So they actually set that up in Civil War.
Interesting.
And then in Homecoming, they actually retcon it and go, no, it's been around since immediately after the Battle of New York. And it's this has been Tony Stark the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's so great because you set up Tony as a bad guy to Vulture's good guy right at the beginning.
Cool.
And
Yeah,
it's like cool. Tony's trying to do the right thing, but as he always does, by doing the right thing, he does the wrong thing.
Yeah,
right?
It's
like they put a setup for Civil War in a movie that came out after Civil War.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that makes the MCU so good, is that you can go back and forth, and it's all just like this tapestry that really comes together. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah,
I think we've talked about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I really liked it. You really liked it. I can't wait to see more of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And we're gonna
His
see
suit is cool. I'm excited to see more of. I liked that voice inside the head.
Jennifer Connelly is the voice.
No
inside
way.
The suit. Yeah. Which is funny because she was Betty Ross in Ang Lee's Hulk. Right, years and years and years ago. The not the one that's technically part of the MCU, but the one before that that's not. Right.
The one without Edward Norton, the one with Eric Bana?
Yeah, the one with Eric Bana.
Which is the only one I've seen. I actually have not technically seen.
Oh, you've never seen the Edward Norton one? The Edward Norton one is not a good movie.
That's what I've heard.
And a lot of it's his fault, and that's why he's not
in
the other ones, because he was a pain in the butt to work with.
Okay.
He was what Gwyneth Paltrow was reported to be, and he's not allowed back. She was Betty Ross. And she's also married to Paul Bettany, who's Vision.
Oh, yeah.
Who's the voice of Jarvis, right?
Oh, so that's cool that their voices together.
Yeah, and it's on purpose. Like, the director, John Watts, actually did that on purpose.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah. Cool. Well, thank you guys for listening. Normally you would be viewing this because we do these as videos most of the time, but...
We're sorry that it's not a video.
It's not a video.
So you didn't just... We should have actually said that at the beginning. Like, your screen isn't broken. Yeah. This isn't a video. But, you know.
But this has been one of our Patreon... ThunderQuack Patreon roundtables. Thank you for joining us. Head to thunderquack.com to check out all of our other podcasts. And subscribe to this channel. Give us a like. Recommend us to a friend. Share it around. Let people know, and if you want to support us, you can do that by heading to patreon.com/thunderquack, and this gets all sorts of exclusives.
Actually, as a podcast though, for the Patreons,
yes, this will be released as an MP3 for Patreon supporters at $5 and above. So
woohoo! So thank you for supporting us if you already do.
Yeah,
but also if you don't,
absolutely,
you should support us.
Cool, thanks, and we will see you on the next ThunderQuack roundtable.
Well, hopefully not, because I've been on a couple of these now, so maybe someone else.
Okay, somebody else will see you on the next one. Thanks for listening. Bye.